All right, so beekeeping. So I am no master beekeeper by any means. I don't. I ain't gonna throw out no big words. I'll have an asprey with bees and no, no, no. I'm just average, down to earth, backyard beekeeper guy. I just have a few bees. That's it. All right, so a little bit of history of the bees pertaining to the U.S. So early recorded bees was found in Myanmar, encapsulated in amber. Honeybees native. Honeybees are actually native to mainland Afro Eurasia. I can't even pronounce all these big words. Uh, 8 surviving species of honeybees are recognized, with a total of 43 subspecies. So only 8 different types of honeybees exist. So it's crazy, crazy. In ancient Egypt, Egyptians used honey as a sweetener. Da, 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 da. They're actually still digging up jars of honey in Egypt and stuff that's still good to eat. Crazy, yeah. Indefinite shelf life. If you store it right, forever, forever, forever. Practice of beekeeping or uh, apiculture has a long history. Cave paintings in Spain, all this other stuff. So today's honeybees are found all over the world, with humans responsible for their where they're at. Uh, I don't I'm not gonna sit here and teach off the PowerPoint and stuff like that, but just the history side of it. Uh, so honeybees are not native to North America, so they were never here. We brought them over. The different types of honeybees we use, the four main types of bees that you find in the U.S. One is the biggest one is the Italian honeybee. They're the calmest, less likely to sting you. Just general natured and stuff. But they don't they don't produce a whole lot of honey, but they're calm and easier to work with. So that's why most people go with the Italian honeybees. All right, then you've got the German black honeybees. They're just they're a wee bit more aggressive, darker in color. They're more resistant to the cold weather because they come from Russia and stuff like that. And they, if you agitate them, yeah, they're gonna be more apt to get you and stuff. Uh, the Russian, or I said Russian before German, but the Russian honeybees, they're really dark. Most of your honeybees, they're kind of yellowish, and then they'll have like black stripes, little thin stripes. So when you get to the Germans and the Russians, there's more black than there is yellow. Uh, but now these they can be aggressive, but they produce quite a bit more honey. They're more active. Now the Africanized honeybees, yeah, those are Satan on wings and stuff. Yeah, they are evil. They are very defensive. I mean, you could just walk by 20 feet away and pow, they're gonna start hitting you. Just really really aggressive beasts, but they produce the most honey. So depending on what you're doing, if you're in it for money and you just want the honey, to sell it, that's what you want to go with. If you're just a backyard beekeeper hobbyist like me, I stay with the Italian bees. I don't like getting stung a whole lot. All right. All right. So let's talk about the different bees in the hive. All right. The queen is an adult mated female that lives in the hive and is typically the mother of most, if not all, of the bees in the hive. So she's all she does is she just goes around and lays eggs and has babies. Uh, Queens are developed from larvae selected by the workers. So the queen doesn't run the hive; the workers run the hive and stuff. So they decide which egg they're going to turn into a queen when the time comes and stuff. So be let's see, especially fed. in order to become sexually mature. So it's what they call oh my gosh, it just left me. Royal jelly. All right, so what makes a queen different from the other bees? They're all female. All the worker bees, everybody, they're all female, but they're not mated females. So what makes a regular worker bee into a queen is what you feed the babies, the larvae. And they put in there what's called royal jelly. It's just a mixture of pollen and honey, and it's just mixed up a certain way. And they put that in there, and as that larvae eats that, it develops her into a mateable uh, bee, worker bee, and they call it a queen. So, so then um, let's see here. Queens are raised in specially constructed queen cells. They're actually bigger and longer and stuff, of course, because the queen's a bigger bee, a longer bee. Um, there's more kind of like a peanut shape. Let's see, build vertically. Usually they build them. Your honeycombs usually horizontal, but the queen cells they build vertically. And everything because they're so much longer. They need that extra space because inside the hive, inside here, there's your frames, and you see how close they are. Well, when they start building that wax out, they'll build it out right to here, and they'll fill that with honey. Well, the queen's so big, it would stick out so much further, so they can't build them horizontally, so they build them vertically. Usually, right here on the bottom of a frame, they'll build out the queen cells. Do they do more than one queen cell, or they just do typically? So if they have a queen and she's not performing well, the workers will coerce the queen to lay her eggs inside 2 to 3 or 4 queen cells, and then they'll bring them up, and then the first queen to emerge goes around and stings through the cells of the other queen cells and kills those. So first one out wins. Uh, and that's about the stinger. So the regular worker bees, they have barb stingers. So if they sting you, the barb sticks in you, it stays in there, and that little sac pumps venom into you. The queen's stinger has no barb, so she can sting multiple times and stuff. So that's why she has that feature, is to go around and kill the other queens before they emerge. All right. So the queen cells cap for around day 7, and a fully developed queen will emerge in about 15 days. Upon emerging, the queen will mate during her maiden flight. So as soon as she, go ahead. That's what I was going to ask about the mating. You said it's all female. Right, right. They're all female. So the queen, a mated queen, can either lay fertilized or unfertilized eggs. 99.9% of them are fertilized eggs to make a female. Unfertilized eggs become the males, or they call them drones. Uh, so yeah, we'll go over them here in just a little bit. But an unfertilized egg is a boy, and all the fertilized eggs are female. So once that queen comes out, she goes around and kills all the other queens in the cells. She'll take her maiden flight. She'll start flying out of the hive, and she'll go where all the boys are, and she'll mate with several boy bees to get the different sperm off of each one of the boys. And then once she's fully mated, she comes back, and now she's the new queen. So depending on the situation, like I said, if the worker bees deem their current queen inefficient, then they'll do this. The queen she'll fly, she'll come back once she comes back mated and ready to go. Then they'll actually kill the old queen. They'll surround her and kill her and stuff. Another thing that they do is called swarming. So during the spring, during the hunt, the pollen flows and nectar flows and stuff like that. I mean, she can be laying up to 3,000 eggs a day. boosting the population of the hive to make more honey, and that's kind of how they procreate and spread is by swarming. So she'll actually lay, a couple queens, or a couple eggs. They'll turn them into queens and stuff. Uh, she'll come out, kill the others, and once she comes back, now you're talking, inside one of these hives, you're talking, 80 to 100,000 bees are in there now. Yeah, yeah, lots and lots of bees. So the mated, so this is kind of still up in the air, but more evidence points towards um, the old queen leaving. But once the new queen, or once the queen comes back and she's fully mated, then the old queen and half the hive, they come out, make a swarm, and then they go somewhere else to make another hive, and they leave the old hive to the new queen and half the bees. So that's kind of how they procreate and move on, how they spread.
So they don't always kill the old queens.
Right? No. Right. Right. So no, it's not. Yeah. And so now I do splits sometimes. So as soon as spring starts coming on, as soon as they start populating, and their numbers start really growing, I'll sit there. You can do what's called a split. So before they start making queen cells and stuff, I take another hive, set beside there, and I'll just pull out some frames, some frames of honey, some frames of pollen, and then some frames of um, eggs. You got to look inside, see the eggs and some larvae in different stages, and I'll put those in another hive, and then I'll shake off about half the bees into there, and then I'll seal that hive up where they can't get in and out. Well, after less than a day, those bees will realize, well, wait a minute, we don't have a queen. So they'll take one of those fertilized egg cells and build up around it to make them a queen. And they'll start feeding it. They'll start making up the royal jelly to feed it to make their own queen. So once you split the hive, you seal them up in there for about 3 days, 3 to 4 days, and all the worker bees, they all lose their orientation. They don't know where they're at because they go by the sun to know where they're at. They've realized they don't have a queen, so they're working on making a new queen and stuff. So after about day 4, you can open the hive up, and they'll come out. They'll fly around the front of the hive, and they'll orient themselves, and then they'll start gathering and bringing in stuff.
So you're saying that when you move that over, there is no longer ones for the queen bee yet, but then they decide, okay, we're going to take these eggs and make it longer for that queen bee.
Right,
Okay.
right. Yeah, they'll build up around one of the egg cells, near the bottom. They'll build it up to facilitate the size of the queen. Now here, it says, they typically 1 to 2 years, but the queen can live a lot longer than that. But laying 3,000 eggs a day for 2 years, or they don't do it year round. It's just during the flows, during spring and stuff like that. That's when she's really spitting out a lot of eggs. When it starts getting cooler weather, she starts slowing down to where she's only laying just a couple hundred eggs a day, just to keep the population. And as the bees kind of die out, the numbers just die down, so they don't have so many mouths to feed over winter.
So
But
once they make a hive, they'll stay at that hive.
right, typically. Now, I mean, I've had bees. Uh, I mean, do great all summer long. Everything's going good. They got plenty of room. I keep a check on the hives. They're not overrun with hive beetles or wax moths. Or not. Everything looks good. And then once it starts getting fall weather, they just pack up and leave. They just come out of the hive and leave and go somewhere else. They didn't like it there. Sometimes they don't like where they're at. Sometimes you can catch a swarm and you can get them in your hive box, but once you open it back up after a couple of days, they're like, well, we don't like this place. We want to go back. We want to go to that hole in the tree that we saw or something. So sometimes, yeah, they'll just pack up and leave and go somewhere else if they don't like their situation. And back to the I said hive beetles and wax moths. If you don't keep your hives in check, if they have too much empty space, too much room, then bugs will come in there and start infesting it. The hive beetles and the wax moths, stuff like that. And the bees are like, okay, I ain't dealing with this. We're gonna move. So they'll move somewhere where everything's tighter and they can keep the bugs under control. All right, the worker. Well, what's that? The worker bees. That's the most populous bee. 90% of the colony is worker bees. So they're all females and stuff, and they go through different roles. As soon as they emerge out of the cell, they start working instantly. And just throughout their lifespan, they go through different roles and duties that they do. So female bees that lacks the reproductive capabilities of the queen bee and are responsible for the majority of the tasks needed for functions in the hive. Oh, going back to the queen, another thing, the queen cannot survive on her own. She cannot feed herself, nothing. The worker bees have to feed her. They have to get the food, process it in their mouths, and mandibles, or whatever you want to call it. The tongue. I forgot the names. Like I'm not using all the big words, but they have to actually feed the queen. So, like I said, whenever they're going to swarm or do something like that, they'll actually starve the queen. They'll quit feeding her so that she'll lose weight so that she can fly again. So, when she's laying 3,000 eggs, that they keep her filled up and really healthy. They're feeding her all the time and stuff to keep her laying eggs. So whenever they're going to swarm or move or do something like that, they'll actually quit feeding her as much so that she'll lose weight so she can fly again. Yeah, yeah, it's really cool, really cool. So back to the workers. 90% of the colony, their roles evolve based on their age and the immediate needs of the colony. So depending on what stage they are in their life and what needs are going on. If something happens, a whole bunch of worker bees are out in the field and it winds up getting sprayed with pesticides, and you just killed, a quarter of the colony of worker bees by spraying your fields and stuff. Well, then some of the other bees, the nurse bees, stuff like that, they step up and fill that role, even though that their time frame's not there yet. So it depends on what's going on in the colony is what they'll do. But if everything's going smooth, everything's running good, then they go through these different stages. Young worker bees typically start as housekeepers and nurse bees. So they're the ones going around, they're cleaning up the place, they'll clean out the cells, that they feed the larvae, take care of everything. They'll cap the larvae cells when it's time, stuff like that. So they're just working around inside the hive. All right. Uh, let's see here. And they attend to the queen. While older bees transitions roles such as architects, ventilators, guards, and finally foragers. So architects, those are the ones that are actually building the cone and making the poplus, which is glue. So if there's a hole in the hive or something like that, they'll make this poplus and seal the holes up, and they'll use it to glue all the frames together and keep everything nice and tight and orderly. Another stage of the bee's life after nurse bee and stuff is wax bee. I call them wax bees because what they do is that they actually produce the wax off their necks, and the other bees gather that up. They all work together and gather that up, and that's what they use to make all the honeycomb. Uh, so I think
That's what it's made of. Is wax.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. The honeycomb and everything is all wax made by the bees from honey. So I think I have to look the numbers up. Don't quote me exactly. I think it takes like 4 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax. So they have to eat that much honey to produce that much wax, to do the wax. So wax making's very expensive for the bees.
So that's just in the beginning. And then after that, if let's say we have homes in there a couple years from now, they're all they're doing is repairing at that point instead of
Right,
making it
repairing
better.
it, cleaning it up. Yeah, yeah. It's good to recycle your wax, or once you collect your honey and stuff, try not to damage the comb too much or whatever, and you can reuse that next year, and the bees don't have to work as hard making the wax, and they can focus on foraging and bringing in pollen and making honey. So a little less work on them, but they've got to you can't do that. You can't just put um, built cone in there all the time because they've got to go through that phase. They've got to have something to do. They've got to be making weight. They've got to go through that phase. So if you do that, like if you have a 10 frame, a super or something like that, then maybe put like 6 or 7 drawn cone frames, but give them a few uh, uh, just wax molded things. So give them something to do and stuff because they want it their way.
Yeah.
They don't want it your way. They want it their way. And so they'll build cone in between everything, and just you'll go to open up the hive, and you'll as soon as you pull the lid off, you're pulling cone apart, and honey everywhere, where they just building cone where they want to. All right. So then you've got ventilators, so the hive stays 98 degrees year round. That's what it has to be, 98 degrees. So on a nice hot day, and you've got 50,000 bees in here, you're generating a lot of heat. So some of the bees will actually come out, and they'll stand right here on the edge, and they'll turn their butts up towards the hole, and they'll run their fans. They'll flap their wings to move air into the hive to circulate air. So you'll come by sometimes, you'll see 30, 40 bees out front here with their butts stuck up in the air. And you're like, what in the world's going on? But if you look close and everything, their wings are flapping, so they grip in, they lock on, and their wings are flapping to circulate air through the hive. So not only to keep the temperature right, but also to cure the honey, to dry the honey out. So the bees are smart, man. They know that they got this stuff down good, better than humans do. Uh, but honey, it has moisture and stuff in it when they process it and stuff. So they'll actually circulate air through there to dry the honey out to a certain percentage of water content before they ever cap them. So you'll sit there and pull out a frame, and it might be capped honey over here, but right here in the middle, it's not capped. You can still see the honey liquid in there. That's because that honey's not ready yet to be capped, because they're working on getting the moisture content down.
I don't. You may go over this later, so if you are, just let me know. But what about when it gets cooler out? You said it has to be 98
Right.
degrees. What about when it gets cooler out? Do you
All
have
right.
to do something protected, or
What typically no. The biggest thing for winter is food, honey. Don't rob every drop of honey from the bees and stuff. They need they make the honey to survive the winter. I mean, it's the whole process. So in the winter time and cold weather and stuff, the population dropped way down. You're talking just thousands of bees instead of 20s and 30s and 40,000s and stuff. So what they do is they group together and they vibrate and keep warm. So, but they need that honey to give them the energy to keep to generate enough heat to keep it warm in there. So that's one of the biggest things that beekeepers do is they rob all the honey from them, and then once it starts getting cold, they're eating it up faster than they can use it, or they're eating it up more than what they have, and they wind up starving to death. So it's not that they froze to death; they starved to death because there's no honey in there for them to eat to have the energy. And so there's nothing sadder. And I've done, when I started, I was learning too. But there's nothing sadder than to open up a hive and see nothing but little butts sticking out of the cells where they were crawling inside the cells trying to stay warm. Yeah, it's devastating to me. Then you got the guard bees. I call them, the grumpy women. the so the guard bees, they're the ones keep check on the hive, make sure no intruders come in, no other bees from another colony tries to come in and steal honey and stuff like that. So they'll stand around the entrance area, and if when a worker bee flies in and stuff, they'll run over there, sniff, smell, see if they have the queen scent on them. Make sure that they're part of the colony. If they sense something off, they attack that bee and get rid of it because bees will actually rob other bees.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Especially when once it starts getting fall weather, cooler weather, and there's no more pollen, no more nectar flows, stuff like that going on, the bees will get lazy. So they'll go. So a really, really strong hive of bees will go out and find a weak hive of bees, and they'll actually go over there, fight them, kill them, and take all the honey and take it back to their hive. All right, and then one of the last stages is forager bees. So they're the ones that go out, find the pollen, find the plants, come back, and they report back to the hive. Hey, man, I just found this big old field about 2 miles away over here. Da, 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 and they communicate that by their little wiggle dances. So it's really cool to watch them stuff. So they'll come back and they'll go inside the hive, and depending on which way they're facing and stuff, so which way they're facing is the direction it is, and then how much they wiggle indicates to the rest of the hive like how far away it is. So you've got all these forager bees going out to all these different places. They're all out just looking around, and they're coming back reporting, "Hey, I found a half-acre field over here." Well, this forager bee comes back, "Hey, man, I just found a 20-acre field of corn." So that one gets the more attention because it's more aggressive in its wiggles and stuff. So they're like, "Okay, well, we're gonna skip that 1 acre. We're gonna go over here and hit that cornfield." So, and it gives them the direction, so they start coming out and going that way to gather. All right, so yeah, so then they go, being forager bees, and then, a lot of times the bees, as when they fly out, they'll wind up dying as they're gone. But occasionally, a bee will die inside the hive and stuff. That's the housekeepers and stuff. So if you have, an older bee or whatever that dies inside the hive, or one that they deem sick or not healthy or whatever, they'll actually take them out of the hive, kick them out. So you watch them long enough, you'll see two bees coming out. You'll see one bee dragging another one, and it's sitting there resisting and stuff, and they're dragging it out. They'll fall down on the ground, da, 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 and after a little bit, the good bee or healthy bee or whatever will finally break away and fly back up into the hive. That's their housekeeping. If you open up a hive, like I said, and there's honeycomb and stuff all over the place, and you're sitting there, they're the ones that clean all that up. So they like it nice and tidy and neat. So all right, so now let's see here, housekeeping, architects, all that stuff. Worker bees have a hyper hypo gland in their head, which uh, essential for feeding larvae, the queen and drones. So yeah, the boys, they can't eat either. They can't feed themselves either and stuff. So this gland on their head is what they use to help feed the queen, the larvae, and the boys. So when mating season is over and once summer's done, stuff like that, any boys left in the hive, they'll run them out and kick them out. And they just, yeah, starve, die. Because they're nothing but a drain on the system. All they do, their only purpose in life is to mate with a queen. That's it. So all they do is eat and fly and mate, and that's it. Back to the drones. Uh, uh, they're the most. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. That is wrong. That is wrong. This is the slide for. That's worker bees. Yes. Yep. I messed that one up. I messed that slide up. All right. So the drones. Yep. That was on my part. So the drones are the boys. So during the springtime, she's laying. The drones are twice the size of the worker bees. They're huge. So they actually have to make special cells for the drones also. Just bigger around, longer, deeper cells.
How are they different?
Right. Well, they're bigger around.
Round. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right. The queen is more narrow. I should put some pictures of the queen of the different bees on there. I think I got some maybe. But the queen's more narrow but elongated, and the bees just the drones are just big buff bees.
Okay.
So the the boys' only purpose in life is to mate with a queen. That's it. Here's another unknown scientific thing. For some reason, somehow, all the boys uh, from all the different hives from everywhere around, they all go to one central location and just buzz around, waiting for a queen to show up. So how they know where to go, how to get there, where it's at, what's going on, that still kind of baffles scientists. Uh, but they all migrate to one area and they just buzz around and everything. And then the queen, she also knows this. So as soon as she comes out of as soon as she comes out of the hive, she'll get her orientation to the hive and stuff, and then boom, she just beelines straight to where all the boys are, and she'll fly around through there, and she'll mate with several males and stuff. So the drones, what they do is that they actually, in mid-flight, everything, the drone will come up underneath, grab a hold of the queen, pretty much burst his abdomen onto the queen for mating, and then he drops down and then he dies. So that's it. Well, their only purpose in life is to mate with a queen. So if he flies out there and he's buzzing around, no queen comes by or whatever, a couple hours, he comes back to the hive, refills on honey, flies back out. That's all he does and stuff. So they're bigger. The drones, the boys actually have no stinger. So the worker bees have barbed stingers. The queen bee has a smooth stinger to sting multiple times, and the boys have no stinger. Yep, definitely one of them grumpy old women. And just different things to set them off too. It doesn't have to be you there, shaking the hive or what are disturbing them. Me driving the tractor, here across the road away, the vibration, diesel smell, whatever, agitates them.
Their music, we have real loud, probably is what threw them off.
So yeah. Noise, vibrations, colors, real dark colors.
I go outside, I have light colors on.
Yeah. Dark colors because like dark colors, like dark browns and blacks and stuff, they perceive as animal, like a bear or something. So yeah, because bears will destroy a hive in no time. All right, so skipping my messed up slide there. All right, so that's all the different bees. So let's talk about the hive. So there's two main types of hives in the U.S. There's all different types and stuff, uh, but the Langentroth hive is the most common, most used, been used forever. Everybody still uses it. And another one's called a top bar. It's fairly new. but it's kind of like triangle shaped, and the frames are triangle shaped that go in there, and you just stack them in a. That's it, right there. It's kind of neat. I've never experimented with one. I've got these. What I use. I'm not into this to be big. I'm just a hobbyist. So starting from the bottom, of course, this the deep or the brood box or the hive body and stuff, whatever you want to call it. Typically I call it the brood box, super for brood. So this is mainly where all the babies are born. Right. So a little bit of difference. A little bit of difference in the frame rate. So it's a lot bigger, a lot heavier duty, uh, because babies all it's totally different cone that they use. They manufacture, it gets colored different as it's being used. All the larvae and stuff are heavier, and and this is their main home. Okay, so that's your deep, uh, your brood box. Now, some people, a lot of people, they'll actually use a second deep and put on top of this right here, so they'll have a first and a second brood box. Because when they so the bees, they'll bring it in, and they start in the middle. They start right in the middle of the hive. That's where they'll build everything, and then they expand it outwards. So once they get all this right here full of pollen and some honey and brood, so typically you'll see like this whole area right here with brood, and then there's pollen and honey around it. So they have the food and stuff close by to feed them. Uh, right. Well, see now, right. So once the queen gets all this filled up, then she's gonna start moving upstairs and laying babies. So a lot of times the second deep or whatever is where most of the drones and stuff are raised from. So they'll use like the bottom half of the second deep or so, and then the top half I have big heavy cone in there for the drones and stuff. And then they'll start building in between the frames right there, and yeah, make a big mess because they want it their way.
How does that look? I hate to ask you. How does that look at the bottom of that? Like, is it a screen or something? Or okay,
So now
so it
this is
sits on
yeah,
there.
this is a super.
Yeah, I just wanted to see how if there was something holding it up.
Right, right. No, they hang on top. Yeah, yeah. The lips here on the side. All right. So this is the stuff that you can take apart, inspect, check, make sure everything's doing healthy, stuff like that. But you don't mess with it. You don't mess with the honey. You don't mess with the pollen, anything like that. That belongs to the bees, first and second and stuff. That belongs to the bees. So I don't care if this second deep is just nothing but pure honey. You don't touch it. Respect the bees. Leave them that's theirs. So, and then you start adding supers on. So you've got like a medium or a shallow super. I stay with the medium ones because I'm not that old yet. Uh, but this is a 10 frame medium super. You see the size of the frames and stuff. When if this is completely filled, it's about 70 pounds. Yeah. So once I get a little bit older, I'll go to the shallow supers that are about like that. And they're about 45, 50 pounds.
So is that 70 pounds? I guess that's the weight of the honey. Well, the wax.
Right, right. So this right here, no, it don't have any drone cone or anything like that in it. This right here probably weighs probably about 15 pounds. So, All right, so yeah, so then you can start putting uh, supers on, and this is the honey that you can rob that you rob from the bees. All right, now here it shows a little queen excluder. I didn't bring one. Dang it, I forgot to bring one. So a queen excluder can be plastic or metal. Most people prefer metal, and it's just a little cage uh, that lets the worker bees can go by, but the queen can't fit through there. And the reason why people use that is if the queen can get up there, she might start laying eggs. So you don't want eggs in your honey, stuff like that. So people put a queen excluder on there to keep the queen down, and this is all just honey for extracting. Uh, right. Yeah, she's just too big. She can't fit through the slots. But there's a lot. I don't use them. I did in the past. A part of that learning phase. I did use them, but I don't anymore because it actually wears the wings out of the worker bees. Well, no, I mean when you,
it makes sense.
yeah, uh, that's one of the things because when they're having to crawl through that gate and crawl back down, crawl up, crawl back down. Every time they go out of the hive, they go get something, they come back, they got to crawl back up through that. They say it wears their wings out, especially like a plastic one. You want to stay away from the plastic excluders. If you're going to use any at all, use the metal ones because it's smooth, round uh, rods through there. Uh, but yeah, a lot of people don't use them anymore for that reason. Me, if I do have a super and it does have some brood or something in it, I'll just leave that super alone because I'm not desperate for the honey. I'm not in this to make money. I'm not going to rob everything just to go take it to the supermarket and sell it. No. So I'm doing it for a hobby. I collect what I can and stuff like that. Uh, right. But next year, I mean, well, once it starts getting cold weather, and I'm checking the hive, and this super is emptied and stuff, I'll take it out and I'll take that wax out because it's different color, different makeup than honeycomb and brood comb is different. So I'll actually take it out, take that wax out, give that to my wife to make her salves, melt down and render, and I'll re-wax it, and hope they don't do that next year. So
That's only if they start going up there and put more eggs.
right, right. Uh,
What do you do at the end of the year? I mean, when they have their hives down here for their egg laying, do you mess with them ever? Do you ever clean them off or?
through the winter.
Yeah.
No. I'll if a warm day comes by, I might go out there and just open up the hive, just take a look, see in there, see how everybody's doing, make sure everything's looking good, stuff like that. But other than that, I usually just leave them alone through the winter.
You don't mess with their hives that they had in there from the previous
Right.
year. They just reuse them by.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. By this time, I've got all my supers off that I'm going to take off and collect from, and everything that's there is theirs, and I just kind of leave them alone, let them do their thing. So here's just kind of a breakdown. So you've got the baseboard, and then the body, and then the queen excluder, and the inner cover, and the telescoping top cover. Why they call it telescoping top cover, I don't know. Well, the only thing I can think of is so you're building it up, and you got your inner cover on, and then you got your telescoping top on there. So you open it all up. Well, you need to add a super. You just move that and this up to the next super. So I guess that's what I mean by telescoping because you just keep adding it as you go up. Uh, let's see. Let's go back down here to the base. Now, so there's two types here. I brought in a screen bottom one to show, but they have a solid bottom and then a screen bottom. I don't use many of these. I got a couple. But during the summertime, super awesome. Allows more airflow. The bees can control the temperature a lot better, stuff like that. But during the wintertime, it's not good. So it's got slots in here so you can actually slide a board in there and block that off. And that actually serves another purpose too for mites. You can slide a different board in there for checking your mite count. We'll get into those here in just a little bit. But some people use screen bottom. I've got a neighbor lives through the woods. He swears by screen bottoms. That's all he uses. Me, I don't know. I've got two screen bottoms and two uh, solid bottoms. I don't see much of a difference. Yeah, I block them off good, the screen bottom ones. All right, so that inner top cover, if you'll notice the way it's built, so when that goes on there, that traps the heat and stuff in so they can regulate the temperature better. And it gives them a little hole right here. They can come up, mill around stuff. And this right here is for them to go in and out of. They can go in and out right here at the top too, and that's for ventilation also to help let air out.
So if they're in like let's say it's a 4 or 5 tier, either way, when they're all the way in top, they don't have to go crawl all the way down the bottom. They just go off that top.
Right,
Makes sense.
right. Typically they don't, but they have that option too. And then another thing with that little slot being on there, uh, say like you just caught a swarm and you're putting them in here to and you're going to seal it all up and stuff. This top moves, so you can scoot that top forward and block that slot off. So and then whenever you go to open the hive back up, then you can slide it back and they can get out and stuff. So around here we have those European hornets, the big ugly red monsters like that right there. They love honeybees. They love to eat them. So they'll actually come. They'll sit there and buzz around, and they'll catch a honeybee in mid-flight, bite its head off, and take it back to their hive and feed the honeybees to their babies. So they usually come out during the fall time is when you see the European hornets really bad. Uh, and that's when robbing happens. Like I say, a strong hive will go and rob a weaker hive. So that's a pretty big hole right there. So during the summertime, yeah, I like that big old hole because more bees can go out foraging, more bees can come back in all at one time. But when it gets winter time, fall time, when the European hornets are attacking or the flow's over and stuff, and the other bees are attacking, they put make these entrance reducers that you can put right here, and it takes this big old hole, it makes it down to a little hole like that, where like only maybe two bees can fit through at a time. That helps the bees protect what they have. So if there's a smaller entrance, the big European hornets can't get in there, and not as many bees are out going around and stuff like that. So it and another hive, they can't just come and invade. Do a swarm it. All of them dive in at one time. Can't do that with that entrance reducer on there, and it helps regulate the temperature too over winter. So right now during the flow, I have my hives open. Probably about August, I'll put the entrance reducer on. Let's see. All right, the tools you need. Suit. Oh my gosh, get you a suit. Don't buy one of these just simple hoods that with no pants or anything like that. There, me personally, I don't like getting stung. That's what I had before. I just had a hood and gloves, and I just wore my blue jeans and stuff. And I got a hold of an angry hive, and I got hit 7 times in a matter of 30 minutes and stuff through the suit. And I mean, they were just grumpy. So next day, I went, bought this.
Sting through that?
Typically, no. I mean, because it's different layers, and their stingers aren't long enough to go through and get you. I've never been stung through this suit. Right. I mean, this one right here cost me $125. Best investment I made yet on beekeeping. But definitely get you a good suit. Uh, Nothing worse than being stung. Uh, some other things, the little brush. It's a real soft bristle brush. So when it's time to collect your honey, you bring you a tote or something like that, whatever, something that you can close up to put your frames in. So you got your frame full of honey right here. Well, you just sit there and you just gently, get your bees back off of there and stuff like that, because you don't want a whole frame of bees to take in your basement to start slinging honey. uh, and respect the bees. I'll sit there and just kind of just bump them and nudge them off down in there, and then I'll take the frame with one or two bees on it and put in the tote, close it up, and then get another frame out and stuff like that. But a good soft bristle brush, uh, the hive tool. Oh my gosh, this is another absolute must. If you don't have this, then you can't do nothing. Uh, this right here, like I said, they make poplars and they glue everything together. So they'll actually glue all this together, and you'll be sitting there to get them opened up, especially if they're full. So they glue all the frames together. They glue the hives together, the boxes together, everything. So you got to have a hive tool. Reach in there, dig, get your frames. You got that other end as a pry bar. Doing like that right there to pull them out and stuff. Hive tool, very, very essential. You'll use that for everything you do. Everything. And then the smoker. So, what do you think the smoker does to the bees? What do you think the smoke does to the bees? So, a lot of people say, "Oh, it calms the bees down. It calms them down." No, it doesn't calm them down. What it does is, uh, what do you do if you're sitting in your living room and all of a sudden you start smelling smoke? Right. There's a fire somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. So what the smoke does is it makes the bees think, well, wait a minute, there's a forest fire. There's a fire somewhere. So what they do is they go in there and they start gorging themselves on honey because they're packing up, getting ready to get out of Dodge because they smell fire. So it doesn't calm them down. It puts them, I don't want to say in panic mode, but it puts them in survival mode, and they go in, they start gorging on honey
So what's the purpose?
to keep them off of you. So if they're occupied thinking there's a forest fire, they're not. Hey, wait a minute, we got an intruder. We need to go sting him. Makes sense.
So
So
you do that, do you smoke them every time you go for your
yes, anytime I go to mess with them, I'll get my little smoker going. I'll come over, I'll give a few puffs there at the front. I'll get the top popped up. I give a few puffs in there, and I'll wait probably about 30 seconds or so, and then I'll start cracking the hive and stuff open. And while if you're out there for 10, 20, 30 minutes, by this point they're like, well, wait a minute, there ain't no fire. Let's go sting that person. A few more puffs. So, uh, if you're collecting the honey, you can sit there like you're going to take this one super off. You can sit there and just kind of puff it. Just sit there and do that a little bit, and you'll eventually run most of them down. They'll go on down to get out of that smoke, so they can start gorging. Uh, Different things. Pine needles. I found pine needles work really good. Hey, yeah. Dried pine. Get you a trash bag or something, and just collect dry pine needles and let them dry out really good. They work well. Some of the other stuff I use that getting the fire going is this smoke fuel. It's kind of like cottony with wood chips, and stuff in it, it lights up pretty easy. If you want to like make your bees high, this smells almost like pot. These little pellets here. So when I'm collecting the honey, I'll actually use these more often and stuff. And your little drink trays, egg cartons, stuff like that. That right there works really well. Lights up good. So I'll sit there and inside there I'll throw in some pine needles. I'll throw some pine needles in there. Then I'll put some of this in there, and then I'll break up some of that and kind of stuff it around. I get my little torch, get it going. Get the fire going, ready to go. Right. Well, dryer lint works okay, but it burns up really quick. So if you're going to be out there collecting honey and you've got 5 supers you got to take off, yeah, yeah. Make sure you got enough fuel for the job. I mean, if you're just going out doing an inspection, yeah, fill it up about halfway or so. But if you're going to be out there collecting, stuff that puppy full. Make sure it lasts. Uh, but yeah. So big misconception is that it calms the bees down. No, it makes them think that there's a fire. They need to gorge in case they need to fly away. Let's see here. So other little thingies. So you've got uh, queen catchers, little queen cages. So that's like a little hair clip looking thing. So you can be through there and looking for the queen, and you can grab her. So one thing you got to be careful of is, I mean, your queen can fly away. A lot of times you'll be sitting here, you pull a frame out. First thing you want to do is try to locate the queen, and you want to keep her at home. So if the queen's on this here, you're just pulling the frame out, you're just looking for honey. You don't care what the bees are doing. That queen could be on that frame, and just now you're queenless. Or she could fall off, or just whatever might happen. Uh, so yeah, kind of look for your queen. So you can use this right here to catch your little queen and stuff. Well, when you're looking at 1,000 bees at one time, it ain't obvious. Now they make marker pins. I don't even see one on this list right here, but they make little dabbers that you can catch the queen and you can put a dot on her. And a lot of bee farmers, they do this. Each year is a different color. So this year might be blue, next year might be white, next year might be yellow and stuff. So they'll actually identify their queens and mark their queens. So they just put a little dab back there between their wings and stuff where it won't rub off. And that's how they identify it. So a lot of bee farmers, honey farmers, whatever they're called, they'll requeen their hives every year. So they'll capture the old queen, kill it, put a new queen in there, take over, because they want that full-on production of babies. All right, so now let's get into the pest. All right, hive beetles, little black bugs, annoying as all get out. 99% of the time, they crawl up from the ground. So if you have your hive sitting on like cinder blocks, and then you got your hive sitting on that in a grassy area, more chance of getting your hive beetles in there. The more you can separate your hive from the ground, the better. The perfect world type scenario would be, one pole cemented in with a moat, a little water moat around that, holding up your hive. I mean, in the perfect world, that would be it. 75% of people have cinder blocks sitting on the ground, and then that's what they do. So again, there, keeping your space tight. Don't be just throwing supers on there. Okay, it's springtime here. Let me go ahead and put 3 supers on. I expect them to make a bunch of honey. Then that leaves a whole bunch of empty space for the pest to get in there and run the bees off. So Small hive beetles, SHB, significant pests for beekeepers, primarily affecting honeybee colonies. Uh, it is native to sub-Saharan Africa, but it has come here, it has spread here. Um, let's see here. So, under ideal conditions, larvae feed for 7 to 10 days before leaving the hive to pupate in the soil. So that they lay their eggs, little larvae crawl around, they eat crap, and then they go onto the ground to do their thing. The entire development period can range from 23 to 39 days, depending on the temperature and stuff. But these little beetles, they're in there, they're eating the food, they're just a big nuisance, and the bees can't stand them. There's several methods of getting rid of them. One is those little traps. Um, Remove burr comb, which burr comb is comb sticking off the sides of the frames and stuff like that. So when you pull your frames out, I said that they'll actually be building cone here, and these frames will be stuck together, and there'll be cone in between them. So by taking your little tool, sitting there scraping off that burr comb, things like that, getting rid of that, because that's places for them to hide, the hive beetles. Um, let's see here. Where am I at? Yeah. Remove burrs, combs, and poplars to expose the beetles to the bees, because the bees will run them out. Uh, let's see here. Place colonies under sun, as beetles are more attracted to shady areas. So don't place your hive right here underneath this shade tree. Oh, I'm gonna give them some shade. No. Put them out in the middle of the sun. Um, let's see here. Prevent beetles from using. Uh, Wait a minute. Yeah. The feeders. So using the hive feeders and stuff, bottom boards. Uh, Keep that out of there. Don't be using it. If you think you have a hive beetle problem, stop feeding them sugar water, because the beetles will go and eat that. It says, use a screen bottom board with mineral oil or diathermous earth. That's expensive, and I don't do none of that. I use the little beetle traps in between, keep my spaces tight and stuff. Uh, there's no chemicals approved to kill the hive beetles and not hurt the bees. So there's no kind of chemical or anything like that. So the best thing you can do is, have the traps. Uh, a new thing out is Swiffer pads. The Swiffer pads.
Yeah.
They can cut those into strips and put in there, and the beetles are so small their feet get trapped in the fibers. But the bees can walk over it, but the hive beetles get trapped in the fibers. So you take you some Swiffer pads, slide in there in the bottom, slide it out, throw that in the way, and slide you another one in. That's the newest thing that seems to be working really good for hive beetles. But you can see, I mean, how nasty they are, like little maggots and stuff, and then the beetles, and you'll pull out a frame and a little black beetle running all over the place. I'll squash and kill them in a hurry. All right, wax moths. I think these are the ones that I hate worst of anything, because that is nasty. That is nasty to clean up. Uh, just nasty. But these little wax moths, the wax moths pests that can significantly be damaging to the bee colony and stored bee equipment. So I was, kicking back real fast. I say, over winter you got to find, you got to store this stuff. Well, you've got to store this stuff properly, or you're just gonna get infested with wax moths, and you'll pull a frame out, and it's just gonna be nothing but web and stuff. And then you're gonna have wax moths flying in your house if you keep them in the basement or something like that. So when you're done with your frame, so what I do, I'll extract the honey, and then when I'm done with that, I'll set this super outside and let the bees come and clean it up, clean up the rest of the honey. So they'll come clean it up and stuff. And when it's all done, I'll take the frames, put them in a trash bag, and put the frames in a freezer for about 3 or 4 days. And that kills everything off, freezes any kind of larvae or eggs or anything like that, and then store them in bags. Well, yeah, garbage bag. Yeah, yeah. So I'll take one super and I'll put it in a trash bag and tie it off, and then I'll take another, and stack them in trash bags, and be careful not to rip them and stuff as much as possible. But back to these little things. They're known for their ability to chew through beeswax, particularly unprocessed wax, um, chew through pollen, the remains of larvae, honeybees, honeybee comb, concomb silk. The life cycle of the wax moth consists of 4 stages. You got the egg, larvae, pupa, and adult. The female wax moth can lay between 300 to 600 eggs in a cluster on on some cone. So one of these little buggers gets in there, it can lay 300 to 600 eggs, and next thing you know, you've got all these larvae running around doing this. Bees do not like this. I don't like this, but the bees won't touch that. It's sticky, um, uh, webby stuff that the larvae excrete and stuff in between the colony, and you'll have little trails of it through the cone and stuff, and the bees won't mess with it. So they'll destroy a hive in no time. This is the um, that's the larvae there, or yeah, and then once they'll make a cocoon to come out of its wax ball, so you'll have hundreds of these all stuck on, and they'll actually chew through the wood and stuff. Yeah, I hate wax moths. Hate them. Hate them. The eggs hatch within 3 to 5 days, depending on temperature, and then they just start wreaking havoc. All right, control methods for the wax moths. Uh, Maintaining a strong and healthy colony. Again, no space. No space for the wax moths to get in and make a mess. They usually fly in at nighttime when all the bees are in, and wax moths or moths, they fly at night. And ooh, hey, I smell that, and they'll just come and walk in at nighttime. Um,
Bees don't kill them.
no, no, they don't. It's strange, that the bees don't just attack them because they don't sense them as a threat. So that they don't know that wax moth's going to come in there and start laying a whole bunch of eggs and all these larvae going. They don't know that, so they just see it as a little moth and like, I ain't worried about you. And the next thing you know, they take over the whole hive and the bees leave or kill them out. So they don't perceive the threat of just that little bitty moth. So some of the control methods, keeping a strong colony, make tight spaces, good colony management, storing the equipment in cool, dry places, freezing equipment for at least 48 hours to kill eggs and larvae. Uh, it's recommended to avoid leaving scraps of burr comb lying around the apiary. So when you're opening up your hive and you're going through there and you're scraping off that burr comb, don't just come over here and scrape it off onto the ground and leave it there, because that's an attractant to them. So if you're going to be scraping off, have you a little bucket or something, scrape it off and knock it off into your bucket. I mean, it's wax. Reuse it or something, or you can do something else with it other than just scraping it off and leaving it lay on the ground there in front, because they can actually smell that from a long way away. Inside the hive, it's more contained. Outside, they can smell it better. Remove empty, exposed supers. Again, keeping your space tight. Withdraw anything with drawn cone in it as soon as possible. There's no, again with wax moths. They make a pad, a block. I forgot what it's called. They say it works pretty good, but there's nothing that you can just put in there and keep them out permanently. Nasty little buggers. Hate them. Oh yeah, yeah. All right. Varroa mites. Now these are devastating little bugs. They are almost microscopic. You can see here. Here's the bee, and that's the little varroa mites stuck to the bee. So they're really, really itty bitty, but they will suck the life out of your bees and just kill the colony out. So very tiny external parasites that attach to the surface of the honeybees and feed on their hemoglobin on their blood, causing significant harm to the bee colony. Because now you got this bee, man, I'm so tired. You start losing blood, you lose energy and all that there. And they can't fly as far, they can't do as much work because they got these little parasites stuck to their backs, sucking all their blood out, all their energy. These mites are one of the most damaging pests of honeybees worldwide, leading to the deaths of honeybee colonies, especially in late autumn through early spring. So that's kind of a sticky board that you can put under your house. Like if you got a screen bottom, you can put this sticky board under there, and they make them with grids on them, so you can get a grid pattern, so you can get an idea of how many mites per colony you have per bee and stuff. So they'll fall down on the sticky pads and stuff, and you can kind of count them out. Like, oh, wait a minute, that's an awful lot. Maybe I need to treat. Um, right here, real interesting. Varroa destructor was first detected in North Carolina in 1990. So that's bringing it home, and has since spread globally, leading to significant declines in managed in a feral honeybee population. So it's actually happened here.
So are they picking them up? I guess they could climb into
Right.
it, but also I'm guessing
On
like
plants. That's where they're picking them up, is on the plants and everything. So uh, like I said, they're just itty bitty. They'll actually crawl inside the cell and they'll actually attach to the larvae by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for use in North Carolina to treat both varroa and uh, trachnical mites. So this right here is some really good stuff. I've never used it or anything like that, but like I said, I think some of that right there is like $50 for a chunk of it. So, absolute worst thing that can happen to your bees is you get American foul brood. So you got European foul brood. Da, 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 da. This is the worst thing that could possibly happen to your bees. So foul brood in bees is a serious bacterial disease that affects the honeybee colony. There are two types: American foul brood, European foul brood. Uh, through the quarry focus, AFB, American foul brood. So AFB is caused by the spore-forming bacterium Penicillium laria. Yeah, big words. So it comes from a spore, from like a mushroom spore, a fungus spore. Uh, Highly infectious, weakening the colony, and often leading to its death within 3 weeks. I mean, super bad. All right, AFB spores are ingested by the young larvae, typically those less than 24 hours old, and germinate in the gut of the larvae. The bacteria then multiplies, filling the midgut and causing a shortage of nutrition, which leads to death of the larvae. Uh, it's more information there. So, if you happen to notice this in your hive, the black cells, the dead bees. It's just ugly, ugly sight. Uh, what they recommend uh, is that if you see this in the hive, That night, when all the bees are in, you seal that hive up. You dig a hole, you put that hive in the hole, and you burn it and bury it because it will. Yes, yes. You take the whole hive and you put it in a hole. You burn it and bury it because it will spread. It's that bad, and to get rid of it, to know that you got rid of it, that's what you need to do. Bees and all. Yeah, because the bees that are in there have these spores on their feet. And if they fly out and touch a flower, then another bee comes and touches that flower, boom, you just spread to a whole nother bee colony. There's no treatment, no way to prevent it. Like I said, it's a spore.
Got that battle up.
Yep. 'Cause like I said, they go to a flower, they go to a flower and they touch that spore, they bring it back. There's no way to prevent that. So very horrible stuff. Very horrible. So AFB. All right. Harvesting the honey. Here we go. Now we're gonna start talking about good stuff. Go ahead.
This
Um,
looks like it's
it can be. Yes. This right here, the honey extractor. I can't recommend that enough. It's. I think he's got them now a 3 frame. No, I think he's got a 2 frame. I think he's got a 2 frame there for like $125 or something like that.
oh, okay.
All right, so I mean it's not stupid crazy.
I was expecting a lot more.
Yeah, you can get like a 10 frame electric one for $5,000, but you know I have a 3 frame mechanical crank honey extractor. Best investment I made. Oh, if you don't have an extractor, uh, you got to take that. So you got it's all capped, it's all done, ready to go. So a couple of different ways of you got to decap it to get to the honey. So one way is using a decapping knife, and you sit there and you just do like that. Very messy, very time consuming. Ah, crap! And then you gotta go back. Then you gotta dig into the low spots and all this other stuff. You gotta heat it up. It works better if you heat it up, and it slides through the wax better. I bought this in the beginning. I don't use it. This little puppy right here, yeah. So this is the cool thing. So you got all your capped honey. These little spikes dig in. So you can set this piece to your depth. You know how far it's going to dig down in there. But you can sit there and take that and just scrape it across through there, and it just peels it right up, man. It peels that wax right up, and I just grab it, and put it off, and stuff, and then put it in my honey slinger. Uh, if you don't have that slinger and stuff doing that, then you got to decap all that, and they make these little blocks that you can put the frame on, and it sets over your bucket, and it just drips. So if you're in no hurry to collect your honey, uh, very long process for it to naturally just drip out, gravity feed out. The honey slinger, you put it in there, you're slinging the honey out. And I take a heat gun. So I've got a little heat gun. I'll put it on low setting, and I've got a little mount right there. And before I start extracting anything or doing anything, I'll heat that honey extractor up good and warm, get it really good and warm inside there. The warmer it is, the better it flows. So I'll run that little heat gun in there, get everything warmed up good, and I'll drop my frames in there, and it warms everything up. And the honey slings onto the walls and then runs down, and then right there's where you drain it out. But uh, so you got to decap it. So I've got a big aluminum, one of them baking pans, big aluminum baking pans. I'll set the frame in there. I'll work on decapping it. I'll leave all my wax cappings and honey. I mean, you're gonna make a mess, And then I'll put my frames in my extractor. Uh, I'll extract the honey, and I'll keep all my waxings and stuff because, like I say, there's honey and all this other stuff in there too. So once I get everything, that's kind of similar to that tool there, but I like that one better because it has that little gauge on it that you can set. But you got to get everything de-waxed, then you got to sling it, then you got to strain it. You don't you don't want bee parts in your honey floating around. One thing uh, a lot of people don't know is like if take a teaspoon of honey a day or something like that. Don't use a metal spoon. So as soon as honey contacts metal, it starts breaking down. It starts breaking down the enzymes. Yep. Just little things you don't know. What you've seen the little wooden things with the line, for the honey. That's why they're wooden.
I wonder
So
who figured that out.
well, they scientists doing tests. So they'll take honey from a stick and put it on a slide and examine it, and then they'll take a spoon, a metal spoon, a stainless steel spoon, a titanium, whatever, and that's how they figure this stuff out. But yeah, the metal starts breaking down the enzymes of the honey, and the wax and stuff. So after you've collected the honey and all that there, uh, the wax, you can render the wax down. You can make candles, lip balm, salves like Melinda does. Just so many different uses. You can actually sell it. Um, and how you melt it down, you just put the wax inside of a little jar or something, put that down in some hot water, really hot water, and then melt it down, let that dry, cool and dry, and then all the dirts and stuff will be at the bottom. You just scrape that off. You can melt it down again. Just keep rendering it till you got it clean, and you got wax that you can use for all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So what I do, 50% of what the bees make, when I'm done extracting and I've got my amount of honey, half of it is mine.
Right.
The other half I'll bring here to the store and sell to buy more stuff for next year or whatever. But my goal of having the honeybees, I don't care about you and me.
Right.
It's all about me, me and my family.
But it makes sense with you doing the half the other way because you're keeping it going is still doing what you need to do and you're not putting no more money into it.
Right.
Really,
Not
just
as
the time,
much, yeah.
just the time. Yeah.
First half more.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's just like the bees do. The bees put up and then they just keep putting it up just in case. And that's what you rob from them. So after they've hit their point, then you can take that. So that's what I do with the honey. So now last year, um, I don't know if I told you, uh, Doom and Blue Medical. I was talking about them. At the expo last year, I was talking with them, and they've got little honey packs in their med kits, but it's one time use. You rip it open, it's one time use. And she told me, said, I'm looking for those squeeze pouches, like baby food. You take the lid off, you can squeeze it and put the lid back on it, whatever. I said, okay, cool. I said, because I told her we had honeybees and stuff. So I ordered some of those little pouches, different sizes, and I filled them up with honey and sent them to her. And she come back and said, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I want 400 of them."
Are you able to do 400?
It took almost everything that my bees made last year. So I didn't. Last year I didn't get to put up anything.
Oh, wow.
And stuff.
Worked out.
Right. So this year, yeah, definitely. But usually we have enough honey that we sell in the store. We have honey all year long. All right. Well, here, since nobody else showed up, there's you another thumb drive full of bee books.
Thank you.
And there's you some honey.
Oh, this is your honey.
This is my honey. Now, here, let me go ahead and stop this thing.